Hi there.
Hey, how's it going, Ellie? Good to see you again.
Um, Thank you.
Yeah, أهلا وسهلا.
أهلا وسهلا. How are you today?
How, good, good. How is life in Australia today?
Not so bad.
Not too bad. I saw on your Facebook you live in Adelaide, right? So in the south?
Yeah, I live in Adelaide, South
Adelaide,
Australia.
South Australia. Yeah, it's very far away from Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, maybe 36 hours if we have transit in Malaysia.
Yeah, it's a very long time. 36 hours, big journey. But yeah, have you been to any of the other cities like Sydney, Brisbane, Victoria?
Not yet, but I'm planning of doing that.
Uh-huh. That's awesome. Are there any other big cities in South Australia actually besides Adelaide?
And actually, yes, uh, it is like Australia, like divided into territories,
Mm-hmm.
and South Australia, the Adelaide is the capital of South Australia.
Mm-hmm. It's probably the
And
most
it is the
largest
biggest,
city,
yeah, it is the biggest city in this territory.
in this territory as well.
I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
A state, not state of South Australia.
the state of South Australia. Yeah, it's interesting. There,
And
Australia.
Adelaide is the capital of this state.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Australia is an interesting country because you have a huge country, but only maybe five or six big cities, So Adelaide, Perth, Brisbane, Sydney,
Darwin, Perth.
Canberra, that's it. I mean, six or seven big cities, that's about it. And I don't think,
Yeah,
Canberra is not that
yeah,
big, I
they
think.
like they like to centralize things in major cities.
Uh-huh. Exactly, exactly. Nice, nice. It's good. It's a good place. There's a lot of stuff happening in Australia, I'm sure. So, um, yeah. Salvador, how's it going?
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Fantastic. Nice sunny day. Thank God it's a Friday, right?
Yes.
We use this acronym in English, guys. TGIF. TGIF. Thank God it's Friday, right? People are very excited for the weekend, so we use TGIF. It's also the name of a restaurant, actually. You
Yes.
guys might have seen a fast food restaurant, or not. It's not really fast food. It's just one of those uh, dining kind of. It's what we would call a diner, maybe a fast food diner. You sit down, but it's still fast food. And yeah, so great, guys, great. I'm glad you guys both joined the class. We are today. We're going to be looking actually at a more historical article, um, and the grammar lesson that we're going to be reviewing is actually contractions. So I think both of you guys are above the level of this class. Um, but contractions are something that we use a lot in English that we can always practice, that we can always make better. So what is a contraction, Salvador? I think maybe you'll be able to explain it to us.
Contraction is a shortest way to say something, to pronounce something.
Yeah, it's a short way to pronounce something, right? So when you have, or it's a shortened form of a word. So you might be able to, let's say, pronounce, um, you might be able to say, instead of saying, uh, you know, I'm going to try to use a more difficult example because we know all the basic ones. Um, I'll use an old example. I'll use an old example from English that we don't use anymore, right? So, for example, for the phrase "shall not," right? Shall not. In Old English, they used to say shan't, right? Shan't. I shan't do this, right? I shall not do this. I shan't do this, right? So shall not is a much larger word. It has two words, and it's a much larger phrase, I should say. It has two words. When we use a contraction, we are making two words into one word usually. And the most important thing about contractions, guys, is that other languages might not do this, but when it comes to English, English uses apostrophes, right? So this is what we call an apostrophe. and of course this is what we call a comma, right? So people get confused sometimes. I've heard people say you put a comma in a contraction. It's actually not true. You should say I put an apostrophe in a contraction, right? Now, there are tons of examples of contractions in English, right? Can you guys give me some examples of contractions in English? Let's start with Ali, actually, this time.
There is something I don't really know what does it mean. Ain't.
Ain't. Fantastic. Ain't, right? And ain't, what do you think it means, Ali? Do you have any idea?
I'm not sure.
So ain't is actually not proper English, right? I'm glad you brought this contraction up because it's not really proper English. It is used by people who speak a certain way. You know, they have a different vernacular. When we say in English vernacular, right? Vernacular means they have a different daily language or a different style of speaking a certain language, right? So in their vernacular, ain't is one of the ways that they say the word isn't. So isn't is actually the meaning of ain't, right? He isn't here. They would say he ain't here, right? But ain't is not proper English, right? The reason ain't was, from what I can understand, the reason ain't was formed was because the singular, for example, he isn't, right? He isn't. What's the plural? What is the contraction for they? If it's he isn't, what is it for they? Yeah, they aren't, right? So I think in their vernacular, instead of incorporating an is, which is the correct way to say it, they decided to change the aren't to ain't for the singular, for he or she, right? So I think that's how it was born. But really, you hear it a lot in kind of music. You hear it more in the way that the culture has been, as the culture has developed. We don't really see it. It's not proper English that we can use in a professional setting. Yeah, so that's a great example. That's a fantastic example, actually, because it's one of the ones that it's a contraction that is not really English, right? What about Salvador? What about some other contractions that you can think of? Maybe some unusual ones.
Well, sometimes I have problems, and when people use contraction with I'll or something. For example, I will. How do you say, or how do you contract I will?
I will. I will become. So what you said was correct, actually, Salvador, right? I will becomes I'll, right? It becomes I'll.
I will.
So you want to learn how to pronounce it a little bit better, Salvador?
Yes.
So I would becomes. Oh, I'm sorry. I will. I would becomes I'd. Right? So for example, I would be happy if you did this for me, right? Or I would be happy if you helped me. The phrase would be, I'd be happy if you helped me, right? So the way we say it is almost I'd. It sounds like we're saying this, like I'd. Actually, I'd, right? I'd. So, or maybe even like this, I'd, right?
What about I could?
I could would not have a contraction.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I would has a contraction. I would is I'd, right? I could, you have to say I could. I can't think of any ways to contract I could. Yeah, there's no way we couldn't, right? So we actually believe, yeah, I could, we have to keep I could. There's no contraction for it, right? So yeah, see, that's a great point too, right, Salvador? Some words, they have the contractions. Other words they don't, right? Some phrases we can contract and other ones we can't, right? It's really a process of process of elimination. Have a go, Nancy. Process of elimination that we use to incorporate whether or not, the more you speak, the more you know which ones of these can be used and cannot be used.
Okay, and what about I should?
I should also does not. Right? So the only one that does for those could, should, would is would.
Okay.
Yeah, great question. Great question. I should. I should, you have to say the entire thing. Yeah. Hey, Ashkan, خوش آمدید.
Hey, how are you? چطوری؟
Good to see you again.
Good to see
بد
you.
نیستم شما؟
خوبم.
خب خیلی خوب. So we were talking, Ashkan, about contractions, right? So I'm sure you kind of got the gist of that. What are some other contractions that you can think of in English? We looked at, for example, I would. We learned I could and I should don't have contractions, right? And we also saw examples like I'll, right? Ain't. Ain't was a great example from Ali. So what are some other ones, maybe some non-traditional ones that you can think of?
Yeah, maybe you're instead of you are, or
Yeah.
we're, yeah, instead of we are. Did
Yeah,
I pronounce it
exactly,
well?
right? Tons.
We're gonna,
Were.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually a really good point, Ashkan, that you bring up. The pronunciation differences between certain words and certain contractions is extremely important, right? So when we pronounce your, for example, you're my friend, right? You are my friend, you're my friend, right? It's very crucial, very crucial that we have context when we are describing certain sentences, right? Because your sounds very close to your, which is that possessive adjective, right? So when it comes down to it, right, you're my friend, this is yours, or this is your book, right? Listen to the difference, guys. You're my friend, this is your book. In my opinion, the second one, which is for the which is the possessive adjective, this is your book, it has a more rounded O sound, right? So try to make that rounded O sound when you say it, right? It's your, right? See how my mouth has to round a little bit, right? And the other one is just you're my friend, right? Some people, depending on their English accent, they actually say you're my friend. It's almost like it's an E instead of an O. You're my friend, you know?
You're my friend.
Yeah, the other one is your. This is your book.
What about we are and no, we are, we don't have any confliction or something.
We are? No, we do. We have were, right?
Were.
Yeah, were. And this one is actually super tough. This one is very tough because even as a native speaker, I cannot tell the difference, right? If we think of you, we are becomes were, right? So.
And were, like you were something. It can be misunderstood by were.
Absolutely. Even the spelling is, I mean, besides the apostrophe, there's no difference, right? So if I say, for example, we're all one big happy family, right? We're all, and you were and were, right? We're all one family. You know what, guys? I think I do have a way to help you with this one. So when we say we are becomes were, right? See how that between the W and the R, that vowel that I'm saying, were, right, is so like short, right? It's a very short vowel. We're all one big happy family. We're all working together, right? We're. And the second one, we wear, or I mean, no, that sounds bad. I thought I had it, guys. I promise. I swear to God. I thought I had something that was good. But now I'm thinking about it. We were walking to the zoo, right? We were walking to the park. It's a little bit, like maybe a millisecond longer, right? Maybe a millisecond longer. The second one, that you were going somewhere. So if you want to shorten one of these two, shorten the first one more than the second one, right? You can get away with saying, we're going to the zoo, we're going to the park, we're going shopping. To make that make that as short as possible. The second one you can extend by just a hair, just a little bit. You know, we were. Yeah, and you can also tell from the context, right, Ali? So when you're speaking to somebody, right? If you provide the context, then of course they're not going to be confused. Absolutely. But if you just want to isolate the word, it's not easy. Not easy, guys. You know, I have friends who also they're from different parts of the country, so they use very different types of contractions, right? People in the South, people in Texas, and they say y'all, y'all better come down here now. You know, what I mean, y'all is you all becomes y'all, right? So it's another one of these geographic contractions. You all, y'all is you all becomes y'all. Only in the South of the United States do they speak like this. You know, the Texans, you know, all the George Bushes, they speak like y'all, y'all. You know, the rest of us we say you all, right? Oh, we have somebody new actually. Wisla, is that how I pronounce your name, Wisla?
Yes, it's already okay. Hello.
Hi, good to see you. How are you?
Thank you. I'm well. How are you?
Good, good. Where are you from?
I'm from Poland.
Poland. Jak kocham Polska.
Yeah, very. I too.
That's all I know. That's the one phrase I know. Great, Wisla. So we are talking about, guys. Actually, Wisla, welcome. We are talking about contractions, right? So we're talking about making a bigger word, a bigger phrase in English into a smaller phrase. We've seen a bunch of different examples. What comes to mind for you when you think of a contraction? For example, we are becomes were, you are becomes your, I am becomes I'm, right? What are some other examples that you can think of?
Dale.
I'm sorry?
Dale. They
Dale,
will.
yeah, fantastic. Dale, right? So we can say, for example, they will, right, becomes Dale, right? And it's actually really good that you mentioned this one, Wisla, because Dale and I'll and he'll and she'll, right? This is the one contraction that we have for all of the future stuff that I can think of, right? So anytime you want to talk about the future, I'll, you'll, he'll, she'll, right? And it gets complicated. It gets really complicated. So do you guys think it's appropriate to use contractions whenever we can, or should we sometimes also say the extended versions of the words? What do you guys think? Wesla, when is it good to use a contraction, and when is it bad to use a contraction?
It's good if we use that to speaking, to speak, and it's bad if we use that to write, because we don't use contraction to writing.
Absolutely.
But I guess we do. But if we want to write in a formal, manner, or if we want to write formal, it's better not to use contractions, I guess. But I mean,
Yeah.
you can find it in storyboards or even in newspaper, I guess. Am I right? All right.
Yeah, this is actually really good. You guys are both correct, right? So when we are talking about normal conversation, we use contractions all the time. Weisel, so you're absolutely correct. We use them all the time. We never, ever, ever, I mean, not never, ever, ever, but if I was talking to Obama, I would maybe not use contractions. I don't know. I mean, maybe I would, He seems like a nice guy, right? If I was talking to Bush, I'd say, y'all better y'all all the time. It depends on the president, right? One's a failure, one's good, right? So, when we talk about, when we use, in speech, absolutely we use contractions, 100%, no doubt, right? In writing, it really depends on the situation, right? If you are writing literature, if you're writing like a storybook, a novel, right, and you're including conversation in your writing, right? If you're including normal, conversational English in your writing, right? Literature, storybooks, of course you can use contractions, right? Because you're talking about characters, what they say to each other, right? But then when it comes to actually using it in formal documentation, it almost never happens, right? So something from your doctor, something from the court, the government, any kind of legal documentation, scientific documentation, will not use contractions. Yeah, so great job, guys. Any questions, guys, then on the use of contractions, how we use them, the ways we design them in English, right? Really, there are only a few types, right? So if we have a word that has not, right? So cannot, right? Cannot becomes can't, right? I can't do something. Do not becomes don't, right? Does not becomes doesn't, right? Will not becomes, what is will not, guys? This is a good one to ask you guys. What is will
Won't.
not? Yeah, fantastic. Won't, right? So there's that negative version of a lot of these words, right? Can't, don't, doesn't, won't,
And
right?
what the ain't is contraction for?
Ain't,
Yeah. Ain't.
ain't is supposed to be for isn't, right? Their ain't is actually not English. It's actually just it's not correct according to English rules. It's just a word that was made by mistake, I guess, or it was kind of made popular, even though it's not really proper English. It's the same meaning as isn't, right?
Farhan, I
Yeah.
have a question.
Yeah.
I don't remember well, but I think that I have written I ain't. That I am correct if I say that?
No,
No?
ain't is 100% incorrect, no matter how you use it, right?
Okay.
The word is just bad. The word is just bad, right? If you want to say I, you have to use am, not.
What
Okay.
about, because I remember at the beginning of when I entered to the class, you had an example of something. It was similar to ain't. I thought you said ain't, but maybe it was another thing you said. I don't know.
Was it? I was talking about
Ali was
aren't
wondering over
actually.
it. Sorry?
I was talking about aren't, like are not. It becomes
No,
aren't.
not aren't. I
Oh,
mean,
not aren't.
what about wouldn't? No.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I was saying wouldn't is the only type of contraction that we use for those would, could, and should, right?
Uh-huh.
So could and should, they don't have contractions. You have to say I could, I should. But if you say I'd, right? If you say I apostrophe D, so if you say I'd can only work for two types of things, which makes it even more confusing, right? I'd can work as I would, okay? It cannot work for I should, it cannot work for I could. It can only work for I would, and it can also work for another one, right? What's another extended form of I'd? We have I would is first, right? What's another one? What's another form? What's another way we can use I'd?
I could.
I had.
So Weslaw, it's not going to be I could, right? Could and should, we have to use the full words. There's no contraction for those two, unfortunately, right? So it's for would, and then Ali is correct. I had, right? I had done something. So you need to use the context, guys, when you're talking about, just like we heard from Ali before, you have to use the context when you're using I'd, right? I'd gone to the supermarket, right? I had gone to the supermarket becomes I'd gone to the supermarket, right?
Farhan, I have a question.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is a contraction for I have, that is I've, right?
Yep.
But if you are talking about that you have something, that you possess something, you can contraction or we can contract.
Great question. Great question. When we use have in English, right, we use have in two different ways. Have is used many times as a present participle, right? I have gone to the supermarket, right? In those examples, when you're making a perfect sentence, right? When you're making a present perfect, when you can use, for example, I've gone to the supermarket, right? You cannot, Salvador, you cannot use the contraction when you are talking about something that you possess. Yeah.
Okay.
So for example, I have this book, right? It's not even my book, but it's I have this book, right? I cannot say I've this book. Cannot. Yeah, that makes no sense in English, actually. But it's a fantastic question. because the use of these contractions differs it differs a lot based on the context, the sentence, what else you're saying, right? And Ali, let's see what you're writing. It is a cat becomes it's a cat, right? And then it is gone becomes it's gone. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, right? So we use it is becomes it's, right? And with it, we have to be very careful because there are two types of it's in English, right? We have this, right? So both of those. The first is a contraction. The second is a possessive adjective, right? Its house, the dog's house, its house, or things like that.
Possessive, you said?
Yeah, it's a possessive adjective. That second one, right? Yeah, possessive adjective. Its house, its car, whatever. So, any other questions, guys, about contractions?
Can I share a link?
Yeah.
Okay.
EnglishClub.com vocabulary. Sweet. This has tons of contractions. Yeah, right? This is great. Positive contractions, negative contractions, other forms, short forms, long forms. Yeah. This is great, Salvador. Right? And especially under the informal contractions, right? Oh, this is really good. Informal contractions, they have ain't. They have some really good ones. Have you guys heard of these ones? There's one called Wacha. What does Wacha mean?
Would you? Huh?
No, not really.
What
It's not
you?
would you.
What?
What you gonna do?
What
are
are?
Like what you?
Yeah, what are? It's actually the contraction for what are, right? So what are you going to do? What you're going to do? Or
So
if you
it's-
want to, go ahead.
So it's what are you? It's watcha, right?
Actually, I think
What-
it's just what are, because we say. No, you're
What's
right.
that
You're right. What are you? What are you? Exactly, Ashkan, right? What are you going to do, right? So, in that example, we have two contractions, two informal contractions, right? Sometimes people say, "What you gonna do?" Like, have you guys heard the song by Cops? If you guys have ever seen the show Cops, right? It's about police, right? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? That's what they sing in that song, right? So, what you gonna do? What are you going to do? Right? Two contractions, whatcha and gonna. And both of them are informal. Yeah.
And something I'm reading this website that Salvador sent. It's written ain't, is, am not, are not, or is not. All of them. So
Yeah,
I ain't sure. Is
But it's incorrect, Ashkan, right?
yeah, it's
We should never
incorrect,
use
but it's,
it. But we can use it for all three. Yes, we can. We can. For example, people say, this ain't my job, right? This ain't my job. This isn't my job becomes this ain't my job. I'm not a bad person. I ain't bad. I ain't a bad person, right? But it's just bad. Like
it sounds bad, so
Yeah. Don't even
educated people
don't
use
even,
it, or what you mean?
Yeah, uneducated people, and it's also part of the, it's become part of the rap culture, right? So when you hear rap songs, they're always saying, I ain't doing this, I ain't doing that. No, I'm saying I ain't doing nothing, man. That's what they talk like. I mean, listen to a rap song, right? I'm not doing anything, man. I ain't doing nothing, right? So it's even worse. I mean, they're just destroying the language, right? So for people who are like me, when I make fun of this kind of language, it's okay. But you guys are learning, so I don't want you guys to get confused by the different types, But yeah,
Gotcha.
Yeah, we gotcha. Heck yeah, exactly. Gotcha means, what does gotcha mean? Yeah, got you, right? So we say many times in English, right? I gotcha. Like if somebody plays a trick on somebody, then the person is caught. I gotcha. So I got you, right?
What about kinda? It's kinda.
Yeah. These are all great, right? Kinda. Kind of becomes kinda. Yeah. And then another one that we use a lot is lemmy. Lemmy. Please, come on, let me do this, man. Let me do this, right? Yeah, lemmy is let me, right? Let me do this, right?
Oh, what
So
about let's? Let's is kind of contraction, I guess, right?
it is, yeah, it is. Let's is a
Let
contraction.
is.
Let us, let
Let
us.
us. Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, let us do something together. You know, let's do something together. Yeah, yeah. Contractions really, it's like a Pandora's box when you open this box, because English is
Never
changing
close.
so much, right? English is changing so much that we are every year we are seeing more and more contractions. Even in the world of technology now, in the world of technology, there are tons of different contractions that we use. You know, smaller verbs. You know, all kinds of things. All kinds of things. So, hey Ken, welcome to class. How's it going?
Yes, yes, I'm fine, thank you.
Good, good. Welcome. So, any other questions, guys? Salvador, thanks for the link, man. It was great. And I think, you know, maybe I can actually include that link in my lesson plan next time. Great, awesome. Anything else, guys? No other questions?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
All right, fantastic. So let's take a look, guys, right? Let's take a look at the article then. And the article actually, it's looking more at a historical kind of piece, right? When we talk about history, when we talk about ancient peoples, right? Every now and then we find out something about a civilization or about a people, and we can use the clues that they have left behind, or that they've left behind, to understand how they lived, right? So in today's case, we are taking a look at a group of people who are Brazilian scientists, right? Brazilian scientists have discovered cave paintings in Brazil, right? So Wildlife Conservation Society biologists have discovered cave paintings made by hunter-gatherers, right, between 10,000 to 4,000 years ago, while studying wild animals in the Taboco region, which is in the southwestern Brazilian state of Mato Grosso do Sul, right? So the basis of this is these scientists have found 10,000-year-old cave paintings, right? So this is an example of one of these, right? It's showing what we can tell is a cat and whatever the cat eats, right? So the cat and its prey, right? And it's a interesting thing because 10,000 years ago, you know, I don't know if people had if they, you know, how they expressed themselves. Maybe they didn't have writing, so they used art to kind of say what they were saying, right? And guys, also remember, anytime you guys have any questions about any of the words or the vocabulary, please feel free to stop me.
You said cat and the prey?
Yeah, cat and a prey, exactly.
It's coming like a prey, like a namaz, you know?
No,
The
was
same
nicht
thing?
in prey, yani, the prey is an animal that is the food of another animal, right? So actually the spelling is different. So P-R-A-Y is when you use namaz, and P-R-E-Y is when it's, for example, the cat's prey could be a mouse, right? Yeah, fantastic. That's a great question. Great question. The discovery was made in 2009 when Dr. Alexine Kuroglian of the Wildlife Conservation Society's Brazil program and her colleagues were conducting surveys of white-lipped peccaries. Herd-forming, yeah, I have no idea. White-lipped peccaries are these pig-like animals, is what they're saying. So they are herd-forming pig-like animals that travel long distances and are environmental indicators of healthy forests. So kind of complicated, guys, right? What they're saying is in 2009, this doctor, Alexine, right, and her colleagues, they were doing research on this type of animal, white-lipped peccaries, which are, they look like pigs, okay, so they're pig-like, and they form herds, right, herd forming. What is a herd, guys?
I don't know.
Yeah. What about someone else? Wesley, Salvador, do you guys know what herd means?
No, I don't know.
A herd is a large group of animals, right? So when we say that, for example, a herd of cows, right? A herd of bulls, you know, those big animals, right? So when you have a herd, you have a large collection, right? So these pig-like animals, these peccaries, they form herds. They always travel in large groups, right? And they also travel long distances, right? So they were studying this type of animal when they found these paintings, right? So let's say the peccaries are vulnerable to human activities, such as deforestation and hunting, and are disappearing from large swaths of their former range from southern Mexico to northern Argentina, right? What does the word vulnerable mean, guys?
Kind of weak.
Yeah, the peccaries are vulnerable to human activities, so they can be threatened or they can be weakened by human activities, right? You know, maybe yeah, when humans do, for example, deforestation, right? When humans cut down the forest and when they hunt, right? Peccaries can be negatively affected by both of those things, right? They can lose their forest, they can get killed, you know. And that's why they're disappearing from large swaths. What does this word swath mean, guys? Have you guys heard of this one before?
No.
A swath, guys, is just a territory, right? And almost always we see the word swath with the word large, right? So if you think of large swaths, think of a large territory, right?
So we don't have any small swaths? That's what you mean?
I've never heard that phrase. Yeah, I've almost always I hear swaths when I hear the word large. The word swath always has the word large with it, right? It just means a large territory. So these peccaries have been disappearing from large territories all the way from southern Mexico to northern Argentina. So most of South America, right? A huge area, right? While following signals from radio-collared white-lipped peccaries and the foraging trails of peccary herds, Dr. Karoglian's team encountered a series of prominent sandstone formations with caves containing drawings of animals and geometric figures, right? So what were they doing? They put some radios, right? They put some radios on these white-lipped peccaries because they were following them, right? They were following these animals. And as they were following them, using these radio signals, they found a series of these formations, sandstone formations, right? So there were maybe caves or large structures, and inside she found the drawings of these animals, right? So this was found inside when she was looking to see what was in that cave, right?
What is lipped, L-I-P-P?
L-I-P-P is it's the adjective for lips, you know, lab ha, you know. So for example, your lip.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they have white lips, you know. So it's all it's saying is it's a white-lipped animal, right? White-lipped
And
peccary.
foraging trails.
Yeah, great question. What do you think it means? The foraging trails of peccary herds. So you guys know what herds means, right? Herds is a large group, so a large group of peccaries. What do you guys think foraging means? The verb is actually forage, when you forage for something.
Forage.
Yeah. What is foraging? Those things. Foraging, guys, means when animals search for food, they forage, right? When they, for example, you see an animal in the jungle, it's kind of just eating whatever it finds, right? It's an animal that is foraging, that likes to forage.
So it's practically searching and eating food, right?
Searching and eating food, yeah, exactly. So they were following these animals when they were foraging, right?
Okay.
These white-lipped peccaries, right? And that's when they found out. So then let's read about these paintings, right? Dr. Rodrigo Luis Simas de Aguiar, an archaeologist with the Federal University of Grande Dorados, determined that the Taboco cave paintings were made between 4,000 and 10,000 years ago by hunter-gatherer societies that either occupied the caves or used them specifically for their artistic activities, right? So they believe that these designs were made by people who lived, you know, maybe 10,000 years ago, who are hunter-gatherers, right? And this word is actually the same meaning as what we see, right? So they used to hunt animals, right? And they used to gather maybe fruits and vegetables and other things, right? Many thousands of years ago, when people didn't know how to farm, they did these two things, right? they did hunting, and they did gathering. So you can also say, sometimes we say that humans foraged in those days, right? So I've heard, for example, I've heard the phrase hunter-forager, hunter-gatherer and hunter-forager before, right? Because, you know, they're gathering food, they're looking for different things, right? What do you guys think about these drawings? You know, I'm not going to be spending too much time on the article today because the rest of it's pretty technical, right? But what can we learn about the societies that, you know, lived a long time ago by looking at their art? You know, is this something valuable for us when we are researching about history, or is it something that it's just, I mean, it's just one example, right? Does it really matter? Let's start with Wesla. Wesla, what do you think about these drawings?
About this article?
Yeah, about this article, about these drawings that we saw in the cave.
Yes, that repeated. This is uncover old
They were, yeah, so they were uncovered, right, Wesla? So they were uncovered, right? But are they actually, how do they help scientists? How can a painting help a scientist?
I
What do you
don't
think?
know.
Well, yeah, let's hear from somebody else then, right? We'll come back to you, Wesla, right?
Okay.
Salvador, what significance can a painting have for a historian or a scientist or an archaeologist?
I think that could be interesting for them because they can understand how people or how the society was in primate time.
In a prior time, you can say.
Okay.
Or a long time ago.
Or a long time ago. That is a good discovery for them because you know, we don't have a lot of evidence or something like that that can help us to figure out how the society was in that time. And for me or for the historian, could be a great discovery because you are understanding the need of the people.
Yeah, absolutely right. So it provides evidence. I think that's a huge part of why scientists love to see art, right? Ashkan, why else do you think is art so important to historians?
Sorry again.
Why else do you think this kind of art is so important for historians and archaeologists and these kinds of people?
Yeah, I think they can study the history of, you know, human being, and yes, it's interesting because it's an ancient thing, so they can study, they can see how did they live before, and what was their culture. Maybe they can study their culture.
Yeah, they can study the culture. How can they study the culture, Ashkan, specifically?
From the drawings, they can see. I mean, what was their, you know, what were they doing? Maybe I don't know, ceremony or something that they were making. Maybe they have drawn it on the pictures, and then they can, you know about that.
Yeah, right. So many cave paintings, guys, you know, like throughout history, they've shown, for example, hunters hunting animals, right? So somebody 10,000 years ago, because there were no cameras back then, right? Somebody decided to draw a guy trying to, you know, hunt, let's say, some animal, right? And based on those paintings, we have phenomenal evidence that hunters were a big part of that society, right? That they ate meat, that they were hunting all the time, right? And even there was one painting, I think, in France, right, that showed a little dog with a boy, right? And that showed that, you know, as long a time ago as we can imagine, 10,000 years ago or something, you know, dogs were a part of human society. They were domesticated. Maybe they were used for hunting. Maybe they were used for protection, right? So those kinds of things can really share a lot with us about the history of civilizations before us. Ali, why else do you think? Do you think if you were an archaeologist, right? If you were an archaeologist, what would you say about the first painting we see in the article, and maybe the second one as well, if you want? What could you say? What could you learn about these people?
Uh, I I could have told that that's the way how they communicate, and interesting to know that ancient people were centralized in Asia and Africa, and how they moved to the other part of the world, and we can understand how the human evolved throughout the time, and maybe we can understand the nature of the indigenous people there. But
Yeah.
I'm not sure how we are gonna say that from these pictures. All about human and some animals. Not sure how we can tell from pictures or drawings.
Yeah, it doesn't give us a full picture, right? So I think that's very important to keep in mind. These pictures or these paintings don't give us a full picture, right? But they give us a good understanding. They give us some clues about maybe what was going on in that society, right? So I think scientists are excited because it's better than nothing, right? And in this case, because I really like what you mentioned about the fact that it's in Brazil, right? So 10,000 years ago, most of the world, or at least what historians believe, most of the world was concentrated in the old world, right? Not in the new world, because even they say 10,000 years ago was when that bridge between Alaska and Russia was there. So people crossed from Asia into North America, and then from North America they went all the way down to South America. This is very far down in South America, right? I mean, Brazil. So if this is evidence that people were here 10,000 years ago, it would destroy that argument that they came from Asia. Maybe there were indigenous people in the Americas, you know. So that's another big, you know, thing to keep in mind, I guess, when it comes to this stuff. Yeah, Ken, what would you say about this? What's your reaction?
Oh yes, I think yeah, in France, this type of paintings was found in France, but kind of. But the type of the picture or the kind of lifestyle seems similar to France.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I can see some kind of universal thing, what human lived in the past as a hunting gatherers.
Yeah, there's that degree of universality, right? So you're thinking about somebody, they found cave paintings in India showing similar things, actually, right? So look at India, look at Brazil, look at France, right? 3 different parts of the world, completely different continents, right? But they have the same kind of images with animals and hunter-gatherers, who are kind of designing this kind of stuff, right? It's interesting to see that there's so many things in common between the groups, right? And guys, I wanted to just ask you one last question. I have to actually leave a little soon today. I have something in 8 minutes. So I wanted to ask you, are there any archaeological, these kind of landmarks in your country that you guys could share with us? Wisla, do you have an example? Maybe in Poland, do they have paintings like this in a cave that maybe they uncovered, or do you know?
Painting like this maybe not, because that is the old painting. The same time how in French or in Africa was uncovered. I think, and in Poland most important is the first town built on the island on the sea, and is uncovered maybe 50 years ago, and it was the first old town built from wood, on this island, and it's really good become to our time.
Wow, that's amazing. Have you been to this? Have you been to this island before, Islam?
Sorry?
Have you have you visited this island, this location?
Yes. I was there 3 times maybe.
Wow, that's amazing. And I'm sure there are a lot of tourists who go there too, right?
Yes. Each class from school should go there and look at that.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. And Salvador, I think you said when we were talking before, there are a lot of Mayan ruins in Honduras, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Were there? What was the name of the big one that you were mentioning again?
Copan Ruinas?
Yeah, Copa. Oh, I forgot the name. Could you type it again, Salvador? Actually.
Okay.
Sorry, I know I saved it off, but I just can't remember. Something Ruinas. Yeah. Ruins. Copan Ruinas. Yeah. So the Mayans in Honduras designed all these beautiful pyramids. Ashkan, what about you? What are some interesting archaeological places in Iran?
Yeah, we have the grave.
The grave, the tomb of Cyrus the Great, right?
Yeah, exactly. You got me.
The tomb of Cyrus the Great.
The tomb. The
T-O-M-B, the tomb.
Tomb. Can I call it like temple or not?
You can call it temple, but really it's more just where he's buried, right? So
yeah.
The tomb, the tomb of Cyrus the Great.
The tomb of Cyrus the Great, which is actually being ruined because the government is building up a dam close to the tomb. So it's going to be. They're saying that there is a danger. I mean, because it's more humid, so it's gonna destroy that.
Wow,
it's
we don't
kind
want
of
that.
Stupid thing. Yeah.
We don't want that.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. And Ali, what about in Saudi Arabia? Are there any interesting archaeological places?
I'm not sure what there is else other than Kaaba.
Al-Kaaba is the main one. Yani, we don't need
I'm not sure it is archaeological thing or not.
So yeah,
I'm not sure.
I don't know either. Unfortunately.
All there is just sand.
Just sand. Sand is archaeology too, right? Maybe we can find something in the sand. Maybe there's a lost city under the sand, Ali. I don't know, right?
Yeah, but actually, there is nothing. Actually, I'm not. I haven't been interested in these things. But as far as I can tell, there is no drawing or anything of that sort.
Anything like that. Fantastic. And Ken, last but not least, what do you think is are there one archaeological site in Japan that you really like to visit or that you've seen?
I'm thinking about kind of a lot of corridors were found in the ancient time, maybe hunting gatherers time in Japan. So it's a kind of distinctive figure. So some people believe it could be an alien.
Oh wow!
A lot of same style of corridors. Somewhat alien-like.
That's interesting. I didn't even hear about anything like that before, but thanks for sharing the picture, Ken.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Well, guys, unfortunately, I have to head out a little sooner today, so I don't have time to talk too much, but did we have any questions about the contractions that we looked at or anything else from the article that we wanted to talk about? Does everything make sense? No one has any questions? No one is confused about anything? All right. Well, awesome, guys. I have 2 more classes later tonight in the U.S., so thank you for a great class, and yeah, I hope to see you guys again very, very soon.
Yeah, good to see you.
Thank you very much.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
it is like Australia, like divided into territories, and South Australia, the Adelaide is the capital of South Australia.
It's probably the
And
most
it is the
largest
big,
city.
yeah, it is the biggest city in this territory.
In this territory as well.
I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
A state, not state of South Australia.
The state of South Australia. Yeah, it's interesting. There, Australia.
And Adelaide is the capital of this state.
Yeah. Australia is an interesting country because you have a huge country, but only maybe 5 or 6 big cities. You know, so Adelaide, Perth, Brisbane, Sydney,
Darwin.
Melbourne, Canberra. That's it. I mean, 6 or 7, 6 or 7 big cities. You know, that's about it. And I don't think, you know, Canberra is not that big.
They like to centralize things in major cities.
Exactly. Nice. It's good. It's a good place. There's a lot of stuff happening in Australia, I'm sure. So, yeah. Salvador, how's it going?
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Fantastic. Nice sunny day. Thank God it's a Friday, right?
Yes.
We use this acronym in English, guys. TGIF. TGIF. Thank God it's Friday, right? People are very excited for the weekend, so we use TGIF. It's also the name of a restaurant, actually. You guys might have seen a fast food restaurant, or not. It's not really fast food. It's just one of those dining kind of. It's what we would call a diner, maybe a fast food diner. You sit down, but it's still fast food. And yeah, so great, guys, great. I'm glad you guys both joined the class. We are today. We're going to be looking actually at a more historical article, and the grammar lesson that we're going to be reviewing is actually contractions. So I think both of you guys are above the level of this class, but you know, contractions are something that we use a lot in English, that we can always practice, that we can always make better. You know, so what is a contraction, Salvador? I think maybe you'll be able to explain it to us.
Contraction is a shortest way to say something, to pronounce something.
Yeah, it's a short way to pronounce something, right? So when you have, or it's a shortened form of a word. So you might be able to, let's say, pronounce, you know, you might be able to say, instead of saying,
Hi there.
hey, how's it going, Ellie? Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Yeah, أهلا وسهلا. Good. How is life in Australia today?
Not so bad.
Not too bad. I saw on your Facebook you live in Adelaide, right? So in the south.
Yeah, I live in Adelaide, South Australia.
South Australia, yeah. It's very far away from Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, maybe 36 hours if we have transit in Malaysia.
Yeah, it's a very long time. 36 hours, big journey. But yeah, have you been to any of the other cities like Sydney, Brisbane, Victoria?
Not yet, but I'm planning of doing that.
That's awesome. Are there any other big cities in South Australia actually besides Adelaide?
No, actually, yes.